suspense. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
Sorry about that. Had a little bit of some technical issues there to start. Apologies. With that being said, welcome back to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Let's get into it. So we have to start with this. The Lakers lost again last night. They've now lost 7 out of 10. And here's the reality with the Los Angeles Lakers. Everybody just kind of bought into it a little too soon. Now, it was the perfect storm for the Lakers on every account. There was the perfect storm on the court, which is teams during that win streak when Luka first got to LA, and they were part of the 8-game win streak. I know Luka wasn't there for technically every game, but when they went on that, and it was great, it looked wonderful. It's like, oh my gosh, what a match made in basketball heaven. When the reality was, the Lakers were the number one defense in the NBA during that stretch, and it made no sense. You traded away your best defensive player for a guy who, even if you're a very staunch Luka defender and you believe, oh, he's not as bad as the analytics say or as people's eyes say, you don't trade away one of the best defenders in the NBA in Anthony Davis and then get better because you brought in Luka Doncic. It just doesn't work that way. So teams were shooting under 30% during the Lakers win streak. Some of that you can account to defense. Some of that is just outright missing shots. And the problem with just teams missing shots or not playing well, you cannot count on that reliably. It's not consistent. It is not a way to continuously win in this league. Second, it worked out in the media. Everything that was going for LA during that stretch, during that winning streak, the media loved it. They're winning games. Again, they're the number one defense, so you had talking points. And it's just LA, it's big city. The media loved it. The Lakers were back to being super relevant in terms of actual basketball product. And on the other side of it, everything went wrong for Dallas. AD got hurt. Kyrie got hurt. Multiple guys. The Mavericks ended up losing 5-6 of their top rotation guys to injury. And so everybody just kept going boom, 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 shitting on Dallas. Oh my gosh, what a horrible decision. And everybody was just upping the Lakers. And it was this perfect storm of look how smart we are and look how dumb they are. Well, now reality's starting to set a little bit back in. LeBron got hurt. That's going to happen. He's 40. The defense isn't as good as it was. Not number one in the NBA anymore. That's going to happen. Teams are making shots against them. They just gave up 150 to the Bulls. The Magic, who struggle offensively, they just gave up almost 120 to them. We're starting to see some of the things that are the reality of the Lakers situation, which is, yes, some guys are going to tell you Luka, LeBron, 2 top 5, top 6, however high you want to rank them players in the NBA, how scary they're going to be on offense. And other guys are going to tell you you have maybe the greatest 40-year-old in the history of professional sports, fine, but still a 40-year-old, and a defensive liability, not great shape guard who, say what you want about Nico Harrison, there is a reason as an organization even though they were coming off an NBA Finals, and I don't agree with the trade, but there are some semi-smart people in Dallas, and they said, this guy can't do it with him. There's going to be some validity to that. We're going to see that at some point in time play out, and we're going to go, oh, I understand what the Mavericks were thinking. Again, it was all great when it was an 8-game win streak. It was all great when it was the best defense in the NBA, and everybody on Dallas looked dumb, and they were having guys get hurt, and they were talking about shutting AD down for the season. But now as you look at the best teams in the West, the best teams in the East, the best teams who should be competing for a title, why should we have the Lakers above any of those teams? The only argument that people are now sticking to is, well, the Rockets are young. The Thunder are young. And while, yes, there's some validity to that, if that's your only argument, you need a better argument. Just saying these other teams are younger than Los Angeles. Everyone's going to be younger than Lakers. LeBron's 40. Everybody's younger than him. Even if you average out his age between him and his son, every other team in the West is going to be younger than them. Every team in the East, besides Milwaukee, is going to be younger than them. That's just their reality. And guess what? Older teams are more of a risk to injury. They are more of a risk to their defense breaking down later in the season. Because as much as you can say these young guys have never been here before, LeBron doesn't have another 90-game season if they make a deep playoff run. And I know he's not going to play. Obviously, he just missed some time with an injury. But LeBron, even when he's healthy, he's not going to go out there and play 80, 90 games, trying to get back to the finals. His body's not built for that at this current moment. So I know we all loved the Lakers. Everybody fell in love with them. They were doing everything right. Could do no wrong. Look at that. And the NBA, it was great because now all you NBA are rigged people, the NBA's rigged. They just gave the Lakers the superstar. Take a deep breath. Calm down. Water always finds its level. And this is the current level. Are the Lakers a good team? Yes. Are they a title contending team? No. Is their best player, whoever you think it is, their best player is either old and a guy who at 40, again, maybe the best in the history of professional sports at that age, but is still a 40-year-old in professional sports, or another guy who's a defensive liability, not in great shape, and people are going to look at his raw numbers and go, look what his raw numbers are averaging. Have you looked at Luka's shooting percentage since he's been a Laker? The special part of Luka isn't just that he can put up these raw numbers. Anyone, I don't want to say anyone, that's demeaning to what professional athletes do, but any really good to all-star level player, this is what they always talk about. If they had the same amount of opportunities as Luka had, they could put up really good raw numbers. The guys who stand out are the guys, we don't just go, Steph's great because of, if Steph had made all his threes, but he was shooting 28% from the three-point line, he just took a million shots a game, we would not celebrate him the way that we do. So Luka's not shooting well, he's never going to be great on defense, and the Lakers' defense, especially his last couple nights, keep getting exposed. And I even saw someone on tweet today said, well, one of those games doesn't count because LeBron missed. LeBron defensively is not a difference maker at 40 years old. I'm sorry. So we all fell in love. Well, I didn't, but a lot of you fell in love with the Lakers way too fast. Take a deep breath. Calm down. Another thing in the NBA I want to discuss is tanking. And now the NBA has been on a roll. They made a concerted effort this offseason and said, hey, look, we're going to start cracking down on tanking. We are tired of teams going, hey, we're just going to start resting guys who don't need rest. And injuries seem to have taken a longer time than normal. I love Brandon Ingram, but Brandon Ingram might have the worst sprained ankle in the history of sprained ankles. Quote, Brian Windhorst. Like, some of these teams are just getting away with outright, well, we want to be in the Cooper Flag Ace Bailey competition. So if we're not going to have a chance to truly compete for a title, this is what we're doing. And everybody's saying the NBA's answer to a lot of this is we're going to fine. Go Google Steve Ballmer's net worth. I'm just using the Clippers as an example. And not everybody's as rich as Steve Ballmer, but I want to get the point across. Go Google Steve Ballmer's net worth. And then what the NBA is doing is finding teams $100,000. Go look at his net worth. A lot of Twitter police that do this. Go look at his net worth, then go use a calculator, and what $100,000 is to his percentage of a net worth. You could do, I heard Colin say this earlier, you could find Steve Ballmer several $1 million. And I'm talking about 8-figure fine. Fine him $10 million, $20 million, which would be an unprecedented fine for a sports league. It's not going to move the needle, because if the Clippers are in a tanking situation, what is $10 million if it means I get Cooper Flagg? What's $10 million if it means I get Ace Bailey? So what you have to do, and this is my proposition to how you would prevent teams from tanking, truly. Now, you're going to have to find a way to prove this, because the owners are going to fight back, and so this is not a let me tell you the exact details, give you the full breakdown. This is the idea I want to put out there. In the NBA lottery, if you're familiar with it, we get these ping pong balls, and you start, your odds. If you are the last team to miss the playoffs, you're normally around like a 1% or a little under 1% chance of the number one overall pick. But you get slotted, there's these brackets, for a really basic way to explain this. So if you're the team and you're supposed to get the 14th pick because that's what the percentage would be, and you miss that, the next time you're available to get picked is up around 8 or 9. So you've already improved your draft odds tremendously. So all you got to do is, if you're one of those teams, let's call it a 3-strike rule to be fair. Hey, first time, we're going to fine you $100,000 if we think you are intentionally tanking. Utah, Philadelphia, New Orleans just come under question. Second time, it's going to be $1 million. Again, these owners are too rich. That's not going to move them that much. But on that third time, if you are proven to be maliciously tanking, which ruins the experience for the fans who spend their hard-earned money to come to these games that you're deciding to tank and pull your stars out, or trying to rest guys who don't need rest, you are immediately dropped down from whatever bracket you're in, and you go down one. So if you were one of those teams, let's say you are the Utah Jazz, who have been fined and been investigated for potentially taking, and we know they are. The Jazz, don't have enough talent to win just regularly, let alone start to try to compete for an NBA championship. So if they're in that top 3 potential, all you got to do is the NBA, third strike, you're knocked down. You can't pick any higher than 4th. You get hit again, you can't pick any higher than 9th. You want to disincentivize them right off the bat? Knock them down a bracket. And there's a better word to use for bracket, but I want to make this as easy to understand for everybody listening. If you're the Jazz, you're the Sixers, you're the Pelicans, and you're in that 1 to 3 area, okay, well, you got third strike, boom, now you're down to you can't pick any higher than 5th. Because now you're not going to get a chance to get Cooper Flagg. You're not going to get a chance to get Bailey. You're going to miss out on some of these guys. We've degraded the regular season. Now, a lot of the people in the media that are complaining about it, I also believe you are still part of the problem. You demeaned the regular season so hard when you considered it wasn't that important, when we stopped giving guys credit for winning 50-plus games in a season, and if you go out in the second round, your season was a failure. You made these guys' careers basically come down to, all right, you need to play good during this exact 2-week stretch of basketball. I believe you are still at fault. But if you want to truly punish the teams and do something impactful, drop them down a bracket. It's the only way you can make these, because you can't find them enough. They make too much money. They're too rich. Again, find Steve Ballmer. If the Clippers situation blows up and James Harden just gets old overnight and Kawhi can't stay healthy anymore and they're trying to tank next year, you could find Steve Ballmer $100 million. The top pick or the ability to get a franchise guy is worth so much more money, you're not going to stop him from doing anything besides just raising season ticket prices. Drop him down, man. Sorry we started a little bit late. A lot more to talk about when we come back from the break. Excuse me. Baseball there's a lot of talk about salary cap, and Jeff Passan had a great point today, and I want to reemphasize it right now. Despite how we feel about salary caps, you cannot stop baseball right now. It's in too good of a place. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. This is definitely a case of expectations. There is no expectations. Drake Mace, we can go out there. He can throw the ball around. Even though he's throwing game-ending interceptions, it doesn't matter. Caleb Williams, who has played some of the best, worst football ever, like, he's not throwing interceptions, and so his passer rating still looks good. Some of the things that he's doing, but he's also not throwing touchdowns. He wasn't really giving the explosive plays. I understand the coaching in Chicago has been a shit show all year. They obviously they've been firing more and more people. They did retain Thomas Brown, though, to be the head coach. So we'll see where this goes. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. So Jeff passed one on podcast today. It was AJ Brzezinski's podcast. Really great show. Good listen. There's so many good things happening in baseball media right now. There's so many good things happening in baseball in general. And that's kind of where Jeff's point was. So they asked Jeff about the potential for a salary cap. And he said, look, I'm not going to give you yes or no on salary cap. He says, yes, sometimes it feels he's from Ohio. I believe he said he's from a small town and from Kansas City. I'm sorry. So small market, and yes, there is times when you're in some of these smaller markets, as someone who's a fan of multiple small market teams, that you look at what the Dodgers spend and the Mets spend and the Padres spend. You just kind of look at it and go, "There's no way this is a fair sport. You're just buying titles. Like this isn't even take away sports at its core is competition, and this just feels like you're cheating the competition." But then he also makes a really good point, and I agree with this, and that is, if you were to lock the players out, which is what you'd have to do at the end in December of 26, you would be potentially taking away, because this is not going to be a short one. This is going to be, because as many teams as you would feel like truly feel strongly about a salary cap, and it's going to be those bottom 6-7 teams in terms of payroll, and we'll see how that even goes because the Rays right now are potentially going to be sold. The teams at the top are going to fight this every tooth and nail. And so this is not going to be some really easy negotiation. Oh, yeah, we need to get a salary cap in. This could potentially jeopardize an entire season. Yes, that's a lot of money lost out on. But look at how much money the Dodgers, who have the clear highest payroll in the sport, them and the Mets, look at how much money they get back from their stars, their merch sales. So it's 1,000% worth. This is still turning a profit. Yes, they are spending an exorbitant amount of money, but they are also making an exorbitant amount of money. So they're still turning a profit. They're not going to want to give that up. What they did, and Tony and I kind of discussed this on 90 Feet. Go check that out. We're back for 2025. What the Dodgers are doing is really just showing everybody as cheap owners. So I'm not here to say F the Dodgers or say, oh, what they're doing is unfair. They're just really showing you everybody else has really cheap ownership. And we, as fans, should be equally as upset about cheap ownership as we are of this feeling of unfairness. But to get to Jeff's point, if you were to just totally lock out for a third of a season, half a season, potentially the whole season, with the momentum baseball currently has, Shohei Ohtani, a baseball player who is probably as popular as any we've had since potentially, he makes the comparison, prime Ken Griffey, Manny Ramirez is up there, obviously Bonds. He's in that rarefied air. He is also obviously international. The audience that has been brought in from Japan because of Shohei's brilliance. You have all this stuff going, like what the Mets are doing with Lindor, Juan Soto. You got what, with the Braves, with the collection of talent they've gathered. You have all these different teams. And then, yes, these are at the top end of payrolls. But all the momentum they gathered for baseball. Baseball was in a horrible spot for a good 5 to 6 years where hockey ratings were catching up to baseball. And no disrespect to hockey, but this was America's pastime at one point. This was the number one sport in the U.S. And to go down to number 4, that kind of a drop-off, you got to think about it. The momentum that has been built, are you going to say, we're going to put all of that to the side just to get a salary cap? Again, we said this 90 Feet. I am far more on the side, and this is somebody who wanted a salary cap for a long time, but I am now so much more on the side of don't allow your owners to get away with being cheap. You know who cheap owners are, and this goes to every sport? The Bengals have cheap ownership. And we laughed, mocked, and no one felt bad that they were inept and poorly run because of this cheap ownership. Bengals fans, if your ownership continued to be cheap, you know what you wouldn't have right now? Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And how would you feel? Would you go, man, the salary cap's just unfair? Or even if there was no salary cap, would you have been upset that your owner was unwilling to pay for 2 tier 1 wide receivers? Again, the Tampa Bay Rays, we're going to get to them and not serious, they are other owners who are putting actual pressure to sell the team because there's revenue sharing. And because there's revenue sharing, and this team is still not putting that much money into the team and its players and not even its building, which, hey, we're going to build this brand new stadium. Actually, we're going to get about a third of the way through it, make all these projects, make all these plans, tell people they have jobs to build this, and then, we're going to back out because it's actually more expensive than we thought. Put the onus on the owners. Yes, there's no salary cap, and at times it's going to feel like, man, but then put people who are actually going to invest the money, who are actually going to invest the time, who are actually going to make it happen. Put the onus on them. Don't just be upset. You know what the Dodgers did? Number one, the best thing the Dodgers did, go look at the Dodgers GM. And their president of baseball operations. Where'd he come from? Tampa. Why would he want to leave Tampa, which at the time, Andrew Friedman, why would he want to leave Tampa when Tampa was, at that time, better than the Dodgers, had a more consecutive winning seasons, had been to a World Series, everything they had built? Because at the end of the day, ownership limited to what degree he could do his job. He's now with the Dodgers. Owners said, blank checkbook, make it happen, and you have one of the most successful teams, a team that's going to potentially contend for the wins record this year. And baseball, again, it's in a great place. Baseball ratings compared to where they were 5 years ago, night and day. And Jeff, I 100% agree with him. Why kill the momentum? Yes, if you're a Pirates fan, does it suck? Sure. But why not take that feeling of suck and put it the onus on your owner that, hey, look, we have O'Neal Cruz. We have Skeens, who's potentially going to be in the conversation for the best pitcher in the sport by the end of year 2. Put the onus on him to say, hey, we've acquired the talent. We have the guys. Let's pay them. I know it seems weird, not everybody's going to want to live in Los Angeles. They will as long as Los Angeles has open checkbooks, but not everyone's going to want to live in Los Angeles. And these billionaires who own these teams, a lot more of them could have open checkbooks. So let's put the onus on that. Let's not just go after the salary cap. Let's not mess up what we got going in baseball right now. There's a lot of markets with a lot of talent. Put the onus on the owners. Moving on to not serious, and let's stay with baseball. A not serious, this one sucks to do. So everyone knows, who's ever listening knows my affiliation with the Tampa Bay Rays. It is, in my opinion, one of the best organizations in all of sports in the way that they're run. They are coming into this year again with maybe their least talented major league roster in a while. They're still going to have some quality starting pitchers, but they come with the number 2 farm system. And eventually, we always say the only way to motivate these guys is money. And when it comes to billionaires who are usually all in, Billionaires Boys Club, they're all kind of friends with each other. Even billionaires don't want other billionaires messing with their money. And the Tampa Bay Rays, they were supposed to have a new stadium. Now, part of this they can't control. There was an unfortunate, obviously, with the hurricane, which ripped Tropicana to shreds and was not going to be ready to play by the start of 2025. But there was already in talks and already discussions and already plans and layouts to build a brand new stadium. And they came out and said, hey, look, this is what we're doing. I'm investing in the team. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Boom, let's do it. And then about a month ago now, we're not doing it no more. It's really expensive. I don't want to pay for it. And why I say it matters when other billionaires don't want other billionaires messing with their money is because in all sports, there's revenue sharing, which means, yes, the Dodgers, because they signed this $1 billion TV deal, yeah, they're going to get the majority of the money from that. But they are also going to have to share that money with every other team that is in Major League Baseball. I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head. I'm not the math guy as far as that goes. And the other owners are finally looking at Tampa Bay, who has put out consecutive Great. Go look at the former Tampa Bay Rays in Major League Baseball. It's an all-star team. It is. And they've seen this ever since 2008 when they made that first World Series of Joe Madden. They have consistently put out all-star level teams. They've won 100 games. They've been to 2 World Series. Consistently put out a great product. And ownership refuses to invest. And because of revenue sharing, it's finally starting to click. Hey, they're just making money off of us. They're not investing this money back. They're just collecting a paycheck. And so now there's been real efforts by other owners and the commissioner of baseball, Manfred, to say, hey, look, you need to figure this out or you are going to be forced to sell. And 1,000%. And the reason why it's not serious is because right now, because of ownership, the Tampa Bay Rays, a team that has had success, was just in a World Series a few years ago, has multiple 90-plus win seasons, has division titles, maybe the most successful, not serious team currently going in sports, simply due to ownership and its lack of willing to pay more than 37 cents for anything. Again, put the onus on some of these owners. They have the money. Trust me. They could do it. They have no problem charging you extra for hot dogs. They got no problem charging you extra for your drinks at the concession stands. They got no problem charging you more for season tickets. Like, have you seen where the Rays are playing? Like, go look at that picture. Yankees Park, home for 2025, the Tampa Bay Rays. It's just sad. So, not serious. I got to start with Tampa Bay. I'm sorry. Another not serious is Asante Samuel. I get it. You should feel all athletes have a extra level of confidence that most regular people just can't understand, and you need that for competitive sports. And Asante Samuel is a great player. But you have single-handedly almost killed the numbers argument for people because you decided to say, hey, look at my numbers, look at his, and comparing yourself to Deion Sanders. Comparing yourself to the greatest corner of all time, the guy who's in argument with probably just himself and Lawrence Taylor as the greatest defensive player of all time. There's a bunch of guys, Asante Samuel, you are better than 98% of guys who have probably ever played the position. Maybe 99. You just went after the 1%er, and not just the 1%er, but like the 0.01%er. So yeah, you could put up your numbers. 52 interceptions. Oh, I got the same amount as Deion. Bro, people didn't throw at Deion. And Deion was covering Michael Irvin, Jerry Rice. Like, what are we doing? Deion went to the Niners, won a Super Bowl, went to the Cowboys, won a Super Bowl. Like, what are we doing? But look at my numbers, man. No, the look at your numbers argument, if there was ever a reason to just totally bury that conversation in the ground because it's not real, yes. Can numbers help your argument? Can they give you some substance? Sure. But you're going to go use numbers to try to compare yourself against the greatest to ever do what you did, and you were great. This is not me shitting on you. You were great. One of my favorite corners I got to watch growing up because I didn't think you played in a way that was different and unique. And it's like, okay, cool. You were a Patriot. I really didn't like the Patriots, care for them. But you were a part of that dynasty, and you were a big piece of that dynasty. So the idea, like, but to go use your numbers to go try to get yourself next to Deion Sanders, like, chill out. And my last not serious for today, Puka Nacua decided to tell everybody, well, I'm going to retire at 30. Rappers and athletes, guys. Don't ever believe any of them when they say they're going to retire at a certain age. It just doesn't happen. It's not a real thing. They're just talking to talk. Like, what are we going to get? Because, like, Puka Nacua doesn't know what he's going to feel like at 28, 29. Puka Nacua doesn't know what he's going to feel like at 30. The idea, use your own life where you were at 20 and what you said I'm going to be in 5 years, and the person you're 25, you might not even recognize 20-year-old you. Same when you get up to 30. When you get to 30, you might not even recognize 25-year-old you. So much life happens in that 5-year stretch. Yeah, it'd be great if, you know, the only guy, and this is how you should know that it's a real outlier, and I'm not calling Puka this level of player, but he's probably going to come close. Calvin Johnson's the only guy that we could really look at and go, oh, he actually got to a point where he just, as a receiver, Andrew Luck obviously did this as a quarterback, but Calvin as a receiver said, you know what? I'm actually just over it. I think Calvin was 31. He had some concussions. He was already a Hall of Famer. He was already just accomplished. He had broken the NFL record for receiving yards in a season. One of the true, I would have said if he played out a full career and if he was a lifelong athlete in regards to, like, he was one of those guys that played until he was 36, 37, I think he would have ended up as a top 3 receiver ever. He was the only guy, him and Julio Jones are probably the only two I would say were really in that could they push Randy Moss, T.O. class, Jerry Rice, that level of guy. Like, Puka, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing, man? You're in year 3? Like, what are we doing trying to talk about? Puka Nacua might not even know what he realized. Like, he's not going to understand who he is at 30. And 30-year-old him is probably not going to recognize 25-year-old him and probably go wonder, like, why'd I say that dumb shit? So, not serious. Puka announcing he wants to retire when he's 30. Cool. We'd all love to retire, and then we're 30. Couple $1 million in the bank. He's got more than a couple, but several $1 million in the bank. Yeah, we'd all love to retire at 30. But that's just not how it works. And most guys, I don't want to speak for women, most men have if you've been active and you've been productive and you're a very hard worker, the majority of your life, even if it's nice to say, like, yeah, I want to retire in 5 years. When you actually wake up and start doing nothing, you're going to have that itch. You're going to want to do something. The NFL is not a super long career, so do it as long as you possibly can, and then you go on and live the rest of your life, man. But a 25-year-old telling me he wants to retire at 30? Okay. When we come back, hour 2, who should be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft? This is HardFoul Radio. And we are starting hour 2. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for listening. If you are watching on YouTube, appreciate you for coming by. If you're watching this, you're listening to this on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, appreciate you as well. Will's going to be joining us here momentarily. I want to kind of revisit something Tony and I talked about yesterday. So, Shadeur Sanders, and I think Tony's pretty much got me on board with this. Shadeur Sanders should be the number 1 pick in the draft. Because the reality of what we're doing with Shadeur Sanders is we're saying the things he can't do. We're not saying the things he can do. And when you move the pendulum too far one direction or the other to try to fight for or against a guy, it starts to prove the things, starts to look desperate. If you're a guy and you've always got to kind of prove, hey, I've got money, but you don't really have money. If you're someone who's got to prove, you're really tough, but you're not that. You got to keep making all these reasons and excuses, and it almost exposes what you're not the thing that you're trying to prove, but the opposite. So with Shadeur, it's, he's not super mobile. Okay, well, all I heard for years was we didn't like quarterbacks who were too mobile and would just run out of the pocket without thinking about it. Oh, well, Shadeur is, doesn't have a great arm. Okay, besides Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, who in the NFL has a great arm? Trevor Lawrence has a good arm. He's got a $250 million deal. Jordan Love's got a good arm. He's got a $250 million deal. I'll use Bo Nix as an example, who I was told can't throw deep, doesn't have a good arm, and he was 3rd in the NFL in deep passing yards last year as a rookie. I used this comparison yesterday, is that Shadeur and Matt Ryan are really good comps. Matt Ryan, coming out of Boston College, not a huge power school, so he didn't play the same kind of talent that an Alabama and Ohio State guy would. Shadeur has this in spades. You take out Travis Hunter, Colorado had the worst rushing offense last year and the year prior. No big-time receiver to speak of besides Travis Hunter. We all know the offensive line issues he had, especially 2 years ago. So he's played with lesser talent. He's had to adapt, which is something he's going to have to deal with being the first or a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. You get both of them, not great arms, but Matt Ryan had a great deep ball. He was extremely accurate, either early in his career to Roddy White or in the middle of his career with Julio Jones. Neither of them had a problem getting deep passes for a guy who doesn't have a quote-unquote great arm. Shadeur, same boat. Travis Hunter was able to go deep. We never saw he can't make the throw. He just doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. Fine. 99% of guys who have ever played the position don't have Josh Allen's arm. That's just a unique arm talent. Brett Favre had maybe the strongest arm in NFL history, and he threw as many interceptions as anyone. And then both had poise, both were clutch, both led their team to wins, and yet Matt Ryan, who was a 3rd overall pick in that draft, again, not considered a super strong quarterback class because it was just him and Flacco. Shadeur in a not super well thought of quarterback class. It's primarily him, Cam Ward, and some different people on Jackson Dart. So why aren't we giving, but Matt Ryan, all he had coming out was love. Oh, he's accurate. He's a leader. He's mature. So do we all just hate Shadeur Sanders because of his dad? Do we all just hate Shadeur Sanders because he's got a really nice watch or a really nice car? What's the reason we actually don't like Shadeur Sanders? Because I look at it, I see Matt Ryan 2.0. And Matt Ryan was an MVP, made a Super Bowl, had a hell of a career. Are you going to look at Matt Ryan and go, he's one of the greatest ever? No. But I don't live in a make-believe world where I believe half these guys will become, quote-unquote, the greatest ever. Having a really solid career, setting your family up for generational wealth, getting $100+, $200+ million contract as a quarterback, playing for 10+ years in the league. You got some highs, you got some lows. That's a really good career. Not everyone's going to be Mahomes. No one's going to be Brady. The reality is, Matt Ryan as a bar for your career is a great place to be. 10+ years, someone's Ring of Honor, bunch of yards, bunch of seasons, bunch of money made, bunch of own personal memories, some high points, some low points. That's a great career. And if you had asked Matt Ryan versus some other guys who went that high. Would Trevor Lawrence, in his current trajectory, take Matt Ryan's career? Absolutely. Would Jordan Love, with his current trajectory, take Matt Ryan's career? Absolutely. Fine. Lamar wouldn't take his career. Fine. Josh Allen wouldn't take his career. Mahomes wouldn't. Once you get past those 15 to 20 greatest quarterbacks ever, Matt Ryan looks pretty good. Pretty good career. And so all the stuff that we're trying to say Shadeur can't do, you're spending so much time, analysts, critics, he can't do this, he can't do that. You're almost proving that he can because you're just going so extra against it. So, with that being said, I'm joining Tony. Shadeur Sanders should be the number 1 overall pick. Now, the Giants, literally before we got on here live, just signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal. So the Giants look like, and we're going to end this a little more tomorrow, they look like they are trying to get into the Arch Manning sweepstake next year, which, ironically, if you look at how records and schedules and how some things could play out, Arch Manning might either be a Colt or a Giant, which, of course, he is. So, now that again, that just happened before we got on here, so I don't have a lot to say about it right this second. We'll get into this more tomorrow, but I thought that was funny. So the Giants are going to do their own weird thing, but if you are the Titans or you are the Browns, go get you Shadeur Sanders. It's Tuesday, so you know what that means. We are joined once again. My brother Will is in the building. 6'4", 229, standing good. No, you can't extort this man. How we feeling today?
Feeling like somebody who can't be extorted.
There you go. That's a blessing. So I want to talk about this. So there's a lot. There's been 3 teams now in the past 2 weeks that have been fined for tanking. The Jazz got fined for tanking. The Sixers got fined for tanking, and I'm blanking on the third. OKC did it because OKC they randomly did because it was a primetime game a few weeks ago, and they sat SGA and Williams and I think it was Chet because Chet had been playing, and then they sat him. I made the idea that because you're never going to really be able to fix tanking essentially because again these guys now especially because owners are too rich, fining them $100,000 or $50,000. Steve Ballmer's worth $140 billion. What the fuck is a $100,000 fine going to mean to him if he feels like I got a chance to go get one of the flagship guys in the draft? So you tell me if I'm crazy. My proposal is, you know how they have your percentages, so if you have one of the best odds, you're slotted in, those odds stay for you for pick 1 through 3. So if you actually miss out on a pick, we already know, okay, you can't get any higher than 4th.
Mm-hmm.
If the NBA is serious about trying to prevent teams from tanking, because obviously it ruins the experience for the fans, instead of fining them, if you feel like they're doing enough examples, you do a 3-strike system, whatever, you then kick them down. Meaning, if you feel like Philly is tanking because their season's over, okay, Philly, after your 3rd strike, you can't get any higher than the 4th pick or the 5th pick.
I would say I think something like that would work. Maybe not necessarily that specifically, but I like the idea. I like the concept of it. I don't think it'll be a bad thing. Because I guess if we talking about where
so right now Philly would be, I think they're the 3rd worst in the East. Oh, let me pull up the standings right now. I just know they started obviously Embiid's got his own health thing and that they're not getting flagged for because he's just been hurt all year. But I think they even got for Paul George, they pulled technically early. Yeah. So only the Hornets and Wizards got a worse record right now. Shout out to the Wizards, just naturally ass. Wizards ain't been fined for tanking.
The Hornets, Wizards, Pelicans, and the Jazz.
That's a fact. We ain't been fined for tanking, just naturally ass. And that's I guess where it comes. It's hard. Is where do you where also should that line be in terms of all right, if you go out and find the Wizards and you hey yo, we think you tanking, and if the reality is they just don't got enough talent to compete, where does that line got to fit in?
But I guess when you look at the Wizards, though, they don't have enough talent to compete.
That's
so. It's when you look at who is the best player? Is Poole the best player on the Wizards?
Now that Kuzma's traded, probably. Well, it depends on how you feel about Alex Sarr, but I don't think he's there yet. But I like him as a young player.
So yeah, so Poole is the best player on the Wizards. Lottery.
No, that's true. The
But I mean, when you look at a team which is Maxey healthy?
He's one of the reasons why. So yes, but he's had some injuries, but they've started pulling him out of games too. Like they just played the Pelicans yesterday, and it was a tank off because the Pelicans started again. It gets tricky
With
when you
Maxey
have
and Paul
guys.
George, you should be able to be competitive.
I'd agree.
Not saying you're going, not even saying that that's enough for you to make the playoffs. Not even saying that that's enough for you to be guaranteed a spot in the play-in. Like,
Mm,
but you should be fighting like around. You should be in competition for a play-in spot.
I agree. Shouldn't be
At
behind
least
the
with those
Nets.
with those two players, you should be able to be. You should be talked about as a possible play-in team.
I agree. The I guess the other part of that too is it makes like so the Cavs have slightly fallen off because they're on their first lose or they won their last game, but they were on a 4-game losing streak prior to that, and so them and the Thunder are on like these pace records to be these high 60 win teams, which is normally really elite air. But obviously, with so many teams that are tanking again, the Pelicans they're kind of doing funny business now with Zion and his health. CJ they've been having him rest. The Spurs post Wembayama they've been having guys rest. Is there a great team like the record state in the NBA, like the Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder could all be 65 win teams, but do they actually feel like that with so many teams like at the bottom tanking and them getting however many X amount of wins you feel additional because of that?
No, like I don't necessarily because it's like outside of. I mean, you got Cleveland at 57 wins, and you got OKC at 59. Mm, I would say, even to me, like as good as both of these teams have been playing, they don't feel like 60-win teams. Like, because most of the times when you look at teams that win that many games, you kind of like, oh, who is going to beat them? Who going to beat them? And it's like I don't think you really have that question for either of those teams when it comes playoff time. Like,
I agree.
I think depending on who the Cavs match up with, a lot of they could probably get looking at the potential matchups as far as the play in, they'll probably be able to get through, get through round one with no problem. You're looking at Atlanta or Orlando, Chicago, and Miami as those final four, those 7, 8, 9, and 10. So playing against one of them in the first round wouldn't really be an issue. But I think you look at Cleveland and don't think like, oh man, nobody's gonna be able to beat them.
No, I agree.
And I think the same thing with OKC, even though I think OKC is probably looked at maybe in a little bit of a better light than Cleveland is.
Yeah, no, SGA's.
And I don't know
I think
why.
SGA
Like
being an
I think,
MVP.
yeah, I think it's because of SGA. Because when I look at the teams in the West, like I think OKC is probably in more trouble than Cleveland is.
Oh yeah, the West is
Because
just better.
I think the West is better. The West has like more experience. Like when you're talking about playoff experience, championship experience, like going up against a young team, it's a lot more. It's a lot more teams in the West that are dangerous to OKC than teams in the East that are dangerous to Cleveland.
And, yeah, no, even if you just look at first round matchups, like the Timberwolves are the 8th seed in the West right now. And I know the Timberwolves had their issues to start the season. And you could tell, to give Cat some credit, Cat's impact has probably shown more this year, ironically, since he's been off the team than when it was when he was on there. But
Mm-hmm.
I would rather deal with, if you're the 8th seed in the East, like I'd rather deal with Orlando, or if Orlando beats the Hawks, or the Bulls or the Heat versus having to play with the Timberwolves. Because Anthony Edwards is just
Yes.
by far the best player. And I like Paolo too from the Magic, but like he's by far the best player you're going to see that low end of the bracket.
Yeah, because they so with that Timberwolves matchup, like if they end up in the 8th seed and play OKC, they have the star power to kind of match SGA. Not saying that is a better player, but I mean he's
I'm gonna say it's a better
uh
player.
I would too, like me personally speaking, but like I would pick Ant over SGA. And I also don't think nobody would be shocked if the Timberwolves were to beat OKC. Like I mean, I think maybe the masses would be, but I think just from a fan of people actually watching the games and things like that, is like I don't think anybody would be shocked that Minnesota.
I
I
agree with
think
that.
people are more shocked that Minnesota being an 8 than they would be like
Them
than
actually
them beating
winning.
OKC. Yeah, so I think like the biggest shock is the fact that they so low
Yeah. No, they just got off to
because
a rough start.
yeah, I mean, and especially I mean you traded one of your best players away, so it's like your second best player. Um, so yeah, I think the biggest thing would be I mean I think people are more shocked that Minnesota being at 8 than they would be with them beating OKC. I know I wouldn't be super shocked, but then I mean when you look at who they would potentially have to play later in the playoffs between Denver, you got the Lakers, and you got Golden State. And I mean, I would even say Memphis. Like, I think Memphis will probably match up. I don't know what their record is against them this season, but I think Memphis could match up against them pretty well
I
with
agree.
everybody healthy.
Not they got even the lower seeds in the West. Like again, Memphis is better than what they feel like, and Memphis has a good record. But like Memphis even feels better, and they have between John, Triple J, they've got star power. The Warriors, I just I kind of do all like the old vets. I'm like I ain't trying to see Steph get hot for a playoff series. Like if I gotta
Yeah.
go. And then the Clippers, again, Kawhi, who's finally looks like he's healthy again for maybe the first time in years, him and James Harden, and then obviously the Timberwolves and Ant. There's a lot more at the bottom end of the West that's scary to look at versus the East that the Cavs got to deal with.
Yeah,
Um,
because I mean, the Cavs, they should be able to walk through the first round with no problem. But I mean, when they get into these, like, I mean, if you got to see if you got to see the Bucks, and you got to deal with Giannis and Dame in the playoffs when you're talking about an inexperienced team, uh,
yeah,
that's not going to be fun for y'all. The Knicks, that may be a pretty good matchup. I will probably still lean towards Cleveland. That can actually go either way.
hmm
Um, and actually, if they run into the Knicks, if the Knicks play Detroit, I might have Detroit with an upset. Uh,
I'm not mad at that.
yeah. So if they play the Knicks, I may have the yeah. If the Knicks play Detroit, I'll probably pick Detroit with the upset. The Pacers, I don't think anybody is worried about the Pacers. And I mean, Boston is Boston. Like I think, like despite what the record says, I still have Boston the best team in the East for sure. Probably the best team in the league.
I'm
Uh,
there with you.
yeah, I don't see like I mean, I think it's some teams on whether the East or West that can kind of give Boston some trouble, but I don't see any team that I can say, oh, I would pick them to beat Boston in 7 games on either side of the bracket. Honestly,
Boston to me could only lose if exactly in the East. I think they could only lose if Giannis went crazy. And if you go to the finals, I think it's only if Jokic goes crazy. Like you need to have like an all-time player pull off like an
I don't know if
all-time
that'll be enough.
series. I don't know if it would
That
be
would
either. That's the
I don't
standard
think
they're
it'll
at
be
here.
like from either one of them. I don't think it'll be enough because I think it would have been enough against Boston before a title. I think when you kind of got that because now you're talking about a Giannis who's been there before, and you're talking about a Jokic who's been there before, but now you're talking about a Boston team that's been there before also and won it. So it's like
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if that'll be enough against an experienced Boston team. Like I don't see nobody with enough kind of like firepower. Like Cleveland, I think Cleveland they have a lot. Like I like Cleveland. I would like a Cleveland Boston matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals would be
That'd be fire.
interesting. Like, and I don't necessarily know that it would go 7 because I think where Boston went, I think they have like it's good matchups on in that series, but I think Boston has the star power. Um, Not even I know Boston has the star power. I think Boston probably has the like two of the best three players. Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown will probably be 1 and 2 in that matchup, and then I will go Donovan Mitchell, maybe Evan Mobley.
No, I agree. That's probably now that I'm thinking about this. So that's probably the other situation. And again, I think Boston should win the title. I think Boston's the clear favorite. That's probably the only other scenario besides, like, again, I give star players the somewhat benefit of the doubt that if they go on a crazy series, anything can happen. But Cleveland being the only team, now I don't think OKC is going to get to the finals, so I'm just not including them in this. Cleveland having home court, and so Boston having to win at least one game in Cleveland is probably the only other scenario where I could envision them losing. Like otherwise, this should be Boston's year. Again, I don't realistically see how they're not back-to-back champs at the end of this, but again, anything can happen. And so if we're to paint another scenario, Cleveland having home court against them is definitely one of those. Um,
I like teams. So I do like teams like built like Cleveland. Like Cleveland is they have a really good roster, like just kind of top to bottom. Uh,
mhm.
and I'm not predicting like this would happen, but if they would have met like Boston is good enough to sweep Cleveland. Not saying that that would happen, but I think they have
That's
like they
big.
good. I think that they good enough to do it. Not saying that it's gonna happen because I think Cleveland is a really good team. Uh, but I think Boston has the personnel to do it.
Nah, that's valid as hell. Um, I want to get one more thing real quick. So the only probably now star power means a lot, right? In the East, the top four in both conferences are pretty set. And I think both have one team that clearly everyone probably feels like don't belong there. And if you go to the East, I think most people would take either the Bucks or even I think the Pistons are getting momentum over the Pacers, who are the current 4 seed.
You said the
And
top. Oh, you said the top four seeds.
yeah, and then if you
Okay.
go to the West, as young as Houston is, and I get it, that's going to be its own issue, and we'll see how that plays out. They're currently the 2 seed in the West. I would rather have Houston over LA, and I kind of doubled down to start the show of like people just kind of fell in love with Luka too fast as far as when he first got to LA and they got on that winning streak. Teams during that winning streak, like the Lakers had the number one defense in the league, and it just didn't make sense to me because it's like you just traded away AD, who's your best defender. Like, how the fuck are they doing this? Teams shot under 30% against LA during that win streak from three. The Magic are the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. They shoot 31%. So there's just a lot of missed threes. And so it's almost kind of like, yeah, they were playing better defense, but it was almost like a fake stat because it wasn't something you can't just predict, all right, guys gonna miss shots. And with Luca, again, great player. I know the Mavericks have fallen apart, so the trade looks even worse. There is going to come a point where we sit there and look at the Lakers with Luca and go, okay, you kind of get why Dallas traded him. Like, yeah, he's almost 30 points a game. Yeah, he's a generational passer. Yeah, he puts up all these numbers. But there's a reason why, like, just I know they just came off the finals, but 2 years ago they missed the playoffs. So the Lakers and Pacers are probably my two in the top four for both that I'm the least confident in. And the Lakers, I just feel like right now, obviously it's LA, it's LeBron, it's Luca, but I would have them as my most overhyped top seed. You think I'm crazy?
For the Lakers.
I would say the Lakers most overhyped top seed from the West. So Lakers and
Mm,
Pacers.
yeah, we don't really need to discuss the Pacers. Not even in that way, but I'm just saying I think that that's probably the Pacers is probably one team most people would agree on. Like as far as like one of the worst teams at the top of the conference or whatever.
hmm
So and the Lakers it get tricky because I mean number one, like you said, that whole stat of you traded away your best defender and the defense got better. I knew that wouldn't last long. First of all,
That's yeah.
like
And
they
AD's great.
wouldn't have been able to. So I don't think you're crazy. I may lean more towards the Rockets than the Lakers, and not because and I mean I like what the Rockets are doing, and I actually like some of the guys they have over there too. But I just think I think with them it's going to be a youth thing when you talk about
hmm
dealing with some of these top 10. I mean some of these veteran guys over here in the West because right now they are at the 2 seed. Mm, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're crazy though,
I just
and I
I
also don't. I mean, I don't think you're crazy. I think the trade. is viewed a certain way now. And I guess my question that I'll ask is, if neither organization wins a title, did anybody win the trade?
Oh,
Because I mean, well,
like if Luka never wins one in LA?
if he never wins one in LA, and Anthony Davis never wins one in Dallas.
So I think so. Yeah, I think you would view it as a loss for the Lakers because their expectation is clearly you got to get a title because you got to think there's a decade of Luka left, right? Versus AD could only be like another year or two, and let's say the Mavs just next year end up in the Western Conference Finals. I think if AD got the Mavs to the Western Conference Finals, but Luka never gets LA a title while he's there, I think we'll look back in this and be like, all right, that's a loss for LA. They just have much higher expectations. They're gonna have a much longer time with the player. Like, if Luka never wins a title in LA,
How many years is on his contract, and do we think he finishes his career in LA? Like,
oh, I think he finishes in LA. I think he just got the like the European players just don't really move around that much. Like Giannis is probably the most. He kind of threatens it every now and again, but he does like half-ass. Like the two times he's threatened it, he immediately signed contract extensions. So I don't think he wants to move around a whole bunch. And so right now his contract, well, shit, I think he's only got one more year on this one. Let's see, because he was due to get another Supermax if he had stayed. So he signed a 5-year deal. The largest NBA history at the time. Luka's contract runs through 26, 27. So one more year.
okay.
And then
Mm.
they'll re-sign him. Watch the minutes. Luka better get his ass in shape. Because the Lakers don't sign. Hey man, look.
Because I mean, and then I'm also thinking, like, I think was signing Luka a win now move. I mean, was making that trade a win now move
I think the
to where
Mavericks
they.
thought so.
No, I'm saying the Lakers. Like, I mean, I know they look at it and say, okay, like we got our future squared away, but do they view it and say, okay, we got Luka and LeBron, like we
You
should be able
gotta,
to go get a
yeah.
title this year?
You gotta view that as win now. You just got
Because how
two.
many you talking about? Where does LeBron rank right now amongst players like in the league, like active players right now?
Oh, he easily top 10, and some nights I still think he's top 5. Like
I
it's
would agree. And even if he top 10, I don't even know. Like, I don't know if I can get to 7 without saying LeBron.
that's it. There's like 4
If I'm honest, I don't know.
guys.
I would have to. I was gonna say I'm like I think it can be debated after about 3 or 4. I mean, if you want to say, I guess if you say Jokic, Giannis, Shea,
I was gonna say, hey, is
and
Luka even
and
in that?
Luca,
Like,
but that's what I'm saying. If you throwing Luca in there, but like that's 4 right there, and it's like who's 5? Like, and LeBron can be and I'm sure he could be debated for 5, and I'm sure some people would debate him 4.
he, that's insane. I'm like, it used to, yeah.
So now like even if you got him 5, like you talking about potentially y'all may have 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA.
Tatum's probably next, and
Tatum
even then,
would be in the conversation too, but I'm saying like I think outside of the top 3, even though I'm not even a big Shea guy, but you kind of
mm,
just got to give it to him. But outside of the top 3, when you talk about
best
Jokic,
player, yeah.
Giannis, and Shea,
No, I
uh,
agree.
then I think 4 and 5 is up for debate. Like I mean, Jason Tatum is NBA champion,
Yeah.
like so.
No, that's how.
But
No,
you
LeBron's
talking about
crazy.
you if anything, you got 2 of the top 8 players in the league, 2 of the top 10
Absolutely.
players in the league.
Mm, they got. I'm gonna say just keeping the time windows the same. If the Lakers don't win one in the next, let's call it a 3-year window. So this year and the next 2 years, because I think that's how long AD's contract is for too.
If LeBron retired, they definitely got 1 and 1.
Is Luka?
Not saying they won't win one period, but I'm saying if LeBron wants to hang it up after this year, the Lakers ain't gonna win one in the next 3 years without with LeBron retiring. Like
That's the question. Is Luka a? That's a really good point. We'll end on this. Is Luka actually good? Is he good enough or great enough to be the best player on your title-winning team? Like
I
style.
mean, I think it's tough to say because it's like, I mean, not saying that he isn't, but it's like, I mean, he got you there. But then you can say the same
Stylistically, he
thing
just
for
feels.
you can say the same thing for Jimmy Butler. Like a lot of people will say Jimmy Butler ain't a number one, but he got to two finals.
See, that's wild. Because you got.
Jimmy Butler carried a team to two finals, and I mean, and when you look at who he ran into, like
He
LeBron
beat
James and
everybody.
Nikola Jokic, like that's who he ran
Yeah.
into in the finals, and that's who so it's kind of like
Man, look.
at those points it was like you had LeBron in the bubble, and then you had Jokic.
I'm gonna sound like a hater. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say Luka don't get you there. Like Luka's obviously he obviously got you that he obviously got the Mavs there once. I also think if you just you take out Luka, LeBron, and AD. Luka, LeBron, AD, Kyrie is like the top players of both teams. The Mavs, if they're healthy, I think are a better roster than the Lakers.
Yep, I agree.
They're just right now it's a shit show because everybody's hurt and it's like the shit all just fell apart immediately. But the Mavs I think are a better roster than the Lakers. I'm gonna say yeah. Luka don't win you a title with this current iteration of the Lakers. Like the little
Even though they
Charmander keeps
even though they're gonna still have a LeBron James on their team.
is it fucked up that like if they want like if this team won specifically this year, is it fucked up that I would think LeBron's the best player on that team?
No, and I feel like he probably would have to be like if
Like
yeah, if LeBron was to if they were to go to the finals and win, like
he'd be
LeBron would
finals
probably get another
MVP.
finals MVP for sure.
Yeah, like he's just man, look, I ain't never been the highest guy on Luca. I get it. Like he had a great season last year, but again, there's a reason why it's not just gonna be they just like Nico Harrison don't know what he's doing or it's all stupid. Like there's a reason you traded that nigga and he's only 25 and can drop 30. Like he got issues. Oh man. No, I appreciate